Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Burwell, your host of V Speaks Conversations with Heart and Soul. I have a great, energetic, fun entrepreneur guest in the studio today in season 3, John Wellborn, the founder of Live Well conglomeration, if we will, with 7 companies underneath the parent company. John, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. Was that right? Is it 7?
I think so.
Okay, you think so?
Yeah,
all right.
I think so.
That's great. I was listening to several podcasts that you were on last night, and I was kind of blown away at how many podcasts you've already been on, and it made me feel really comfortable that, you're not a newbie to this, and we're going to have a great conversation, and I know that you can talk about yourself and your business, which is fun. How did you get on all those podcasts in New York, by the way?
A good friend owns a stand-up comedy club in New York.
This is great. Okay.
And he hosted an event called Podcast Row.
Wow.
And he matched entrepreneurs
Really?
with multiple podcast hosts. And so I went up there and participated and had a great time. And I love New York City and met tons of people. And it was just a great overall experience.
Yeah.
I'm a podcast connoisseur. I listen to podcasts every day. It's my favorite form of media. So it was a real treat to experience that.
I love that. Yeah, it was I was impressed. And then when I saw you this morning, you said that was 4 or 5 years ago too, which was podcasts were definitely happening then, but I don't think they were what they are now, which has gone like to the other side of crazy with so many people consuming podcasts, enjoying them, and then people starting podcasts.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
I've got a couple I've been listening to for 8 or 10 years, and they're available on demand. You can fast forward through the ads. You can pick and choose what you want to listen to. I love them. I think they're great. They're my favorite way to be entertained and educated.
Yeah, I know. It is a form of entertainment, and that's definitely, I know that that's part and parcel of this. And my goal in starting this podcast was, yes, to do all the things that we know it should be, but that it was also as uncontrived and as organic and real as possible, that there could be really real conversations, because I think people would get fed by that rather than, it being, too planned, or it's kind of boring also when things like aren't organic, excuse me. And I say all that, and then we have this amazing studio that definitely does, it is not contrived, it is very planned that we have the studio too. And I wanted it to look good, but in the same vein, I really want it to be real, very real.
My favorite podcasts are the ones that are not highly produced and highly edited.
Yeah, I know. That's true. And that's,
I like the long form, that you hear all the coughs and the mistakes and the, I like the really long ones.
Yeah. So you might start a podcast of your own.
I think we're definitely going to start a podcast. It's been on the list since I did those podcasts in New York. But as you know and can relate, some things happen quickly and some things take a long time to develop. So we've had a lot of other priorities, but yeah, that'll happen eventually. In fact,
I'm sure sooner than later.
Yeah. And this yours is an inspiration. Your space here is an inspiration to make it happen.
Well, I know. I think I know what you would call it, right?
I've got a few names in mind.
Okay. Well, Live Well
there are several,
seems like
there are several Live Well podcasts already.
Okay.
So I've got a. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you.
You could do Live Well at the beach.
I think I want to call it Your Live Well Life.
Okay.
Because I want it to be about how other people live well. I certainly want to tell my experience and my story, but I want to talk to other people about. I'm fascinated by, and we can talk about the Live Well philosophy that I've developed that's behind the brand, but I'm fascinated by what I was telling you about earlier when I made the decision to make a huge life change at 28. I'm fascinated by these crossroads we come to in life. And why some people move when that happens and some people stay the course, and what happens in both those scenarios. So I want to talk to other people who have come to those crossroads and decided to take another path, how they did that, and what's come of it. That's very interesting to me.
So I know you took a chance and you made a big life change when you were 28 and you moved from Atlanta here and you left your insurance agency job or company that you were at and you just were going to forge your own destiny. And it's been very successful for you and you're an inspiration to others. But there are some people who don't do that and they stay the course. And in your walk, have you met people like that you try to coach a little bit about maybe how they could do things differently for their future?
Well, the first person I coach is myself because, just because you made a U-turn 17 years ago doesn't mean there aren't future U-turns. And living well it's a practice. It's something we do every day. You do it every day. You may not be conscious of it or not, but we all make decisions every day. And so my first concern and the first person I coach every day is myself.
Yeah, good point.
Because it for me, living well comes down to a dozen decisions I make every single day. And the better I can make those decisions, the better chance I'll stay out of the ditch and continue my own live well life.
Right. That's almost tantamount to what they say in the airplane, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then your family, right? It's pretty much like that. And that's really good advice that I'm taking right now at this moment because a lot of times I put my oxygen mask on last.
Right.
But it's a good point.
Beyond that, beyond myself, I really like to try to lead by just example and through my actions. But I also, that's one reason I love the brand so much that we've created and why I think I'll do it for the rest of my life is I want the brand to spread that message, and the brand can spread that message much more broadly than I as one person can. So when somebody sees our logo or puts on a Live Well t-shirt, I hope on some level it inspires some people
to do it,
to focus on living well.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the idea for two things? One, the business, and then the brand and the name and how you were going to market that. How did that happen when you came to Florida?
So I woke up on my 28th birthday, and I had an insurance job in Atlanta that I'd had since I graduated from college. And I just suddenly on the morning of my 28th birthday realized that I was not on the path I was supposed to be on. And in one day, in one moment really, I made a decision to completely change my life in a lot of ways and get on a path that was more well-suited for me. Traffic and suits and listening to other people's advice about what was best for my life was no longer an option. And I chose to make some pretty radical changes. I had kind of a personal perfect storm is what I like to call it. And like I said, on the morning of the 28th birthday, I decided to sell my business, sell my home, and move down to the beach.
Wow. That's a radical moment in time.
And I came down just to take a year off, and that was 17 years ago.
That's great. Really great story. Did you have any family members or friends back home that were saying, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" that you had to tune out to continue walking on your walk?
For sure. I had a great life in Atlanta is where I came from. I had it was a fantastic life, but it wasn't the path I was supposed to be on. And so for sure people thought I was a little nuts for giving all that up and moving to what was then a much sleepier beach town.
Yes.
But this life is your responsibility, and at the end of the day, you gotta do what makes sense for you.
So you're here, you're at the beach, you're doing your thing, and then how long after you landed here do you start thinking, what am I going to do? What's my business going to be? How did that all happen?
So I came down again just to take a year off. And after 6 months, I realized after 6 months of walking on the beach, and we've had a family beach house since the 80s here, spending time at the beach, walking on the beach, taking better care of myself, putting myself first for 6 months, and just falling in love with the area. I realized I wanted to be here a lot longer and that there was no reason to consider going back to Atlanta.
Okay, so then do you have an epiphany one night about a lifestyle business and what its name is going to be, and perpetuating the ethos of that brand?
So
How does that
the
happen?
lifestyle part came later. So my first realization was I was getting weekly phone calls from people who had homes here, second homes here. They knew I was down here. They wanted me to go check on their house for them. And so the first business was just a home watch business where we would go by twice a month, check on your home, make sure that everything was in order. And from that, things started to evolve. So I've said it before, and if you listen to my other podcasts, the second thing that was requested was concierge services. So not only will you check on my house, but will you provide some concierge services for me and my family and my guests? And that led to the bike rental business, beach chairs, golf carts, all the concierge services. So that was kind of business number 2. Business number 3 was really the lifestyle piece. So we had some shirts designed for our bike delivery guys to be uniforms. And as soon as they took those to the beach, they came back and said that people on the beach wanted to buy these shirts and hats, their uniforms, off of them. They would come back to the warehouse with no shirt and no hat on and say they'd sold them on the beach. And so we knew early on that we had something that appealed to people with the name of it and with the logo. And over time that has just continued to evolve and develop into what it is today.
That's unbelievable. And what T-shirts, hats, like what other goods do you have that bear the Live Well brand?
So today we have 3 stores at the Big Chill, and our lifestyle shop, the Live Well shop, is T-shirts, hats, hoodies, tumblers, keychains, koozies. I mean,
Merch. You have
merch.
lots of merch.
Yeah.
People love it. It's good for people that are in your business that people love their merch so much, right?
Yeah, and we also have a women's boutique called High Tide at the Big Chill. And this spring we opened our 3rd store there, which is Coast, which is men's, a little more women's. And then we have Coast Kids, which is a kids store.
Right. So what the clothing store for women, is that also bearing the name of the brand, or is that also just other products too?
No, it's strictly a women's boutique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And it's right across.
I have to check it out.
It's right across at the Big Chill from our Live Well shop.
Yeah. So, like you really have a lot going on in that destination.
Yeah.
Which is really impressive. I love it there. I think it's a really.
I love the Big Chill.
I think it's great.
We have 2 small kids, and that's one of our favorite places to hang out.
Yeah. Oh, for kids, it's great.
Yeah.
Do you live near there?
We live in Origins.
Oh, okay. So that's really,
Yeah.
You're living the idyllic life
Yeah.
for sure, right? How old are your kids? In the podcast, they were like little.
Now they're 5 and a half
Oh,
and
yeah.
3.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're still little,
Yeah.
but growing up. Well, this is like the best place that you could ever live to raise a family, would you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like
We love it here.
paradise.
My wife is a native. She's from 30A originally. She was actually in the first Seaside class.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, what grade was that? Were like 6th grade or something like
She was
that?
born in '87, so it would have been.
The first Seaside class?
Is Seaside 6th grade? Is that when they start?
I think it was 6th through 8th when it started, but it might have just been 7 through 8.
So maybe
7
it was
and 8.
mid to late '90s,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it was mid 96.
'96 was the first class. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, Seaside. All roads lead to Seaside this year for me. Like everywhere I go, and I keep bumping into like, Seaside, because so much, was birthed there for all of us to have a livelihood. And, one thing begets another thing, like in your life, which seems like really organic. Like it seems like the story you just told me was the most organic growth of a business that I think I've ever heard, because you would do something and then that would turn into something,
Right.
and then it would take wings, right? And
Right.
it's not the norm, right? I don't think. It's pretty or destined to be.
None of this was planned.
Yeah, but planned.
The only plan was to come down
organicness.
here for a few months.
What?
The only plan was to come down here for a few months.
All right. All right.
Beyond that, it's been 2 things: listening to what customers want. We completely are led by what our customers want and what sounds fun for us to do. You and I were talking about that earlier. we want to do things that are fun. You know, we created our membership, our most recent iteration of the brand, because my wife and I wanted it. We saw a need for it when we would visit other places, and it's something that we wanted, and it's something that we thought would be fun to create.
Yeah, talk about that. Give me a little bit more details on that. I'm not completely clear on how that works and what you get for the membership.
So we just started our third year of our Live Well 30A membership. And the mission of the membership is to make 30A vacations easier, better, and less expensive.
Okay.
And that came from a couple of things. So one, the way you and I would vacation on 30A is a lot different than the way somebody from Atlanta or Nashville or Houston would vacation on 30A, because we have resources and we know when to do things and how to do things and how to make it better, easier, less expensive. Somebody coming from out of town doesn't necessarily have access to those resources. So we wanted to create a membership that would give our members the opportunity to experience 30A the way locals would experience 30A. The second place it came from is we spend our summers in Vail. We just got back. We spent August and September in Vail. And the comment we make when we go to Vail or when we travel to other areas is, man, I wish we had Live Well here. And so we want to experience Vail the same way we would experience 30A as a local. And so that's why we've created the membership, is to allow our members, allow for a better, easier, less expensive way to experience 30A.
So would you need to build your employee base to have people in said locations like Vail to help people do that like you have down here? Like, how would that work?
We'd have to have resources there for sure.
Yeah.
Our observation is that people who live in the Southeast, which is most of the people who come to 30A live in the Southeast, they vacation in 4 or 5 spots. They vacation here. They vacation in the Rockies. They vacation in the Smoky Mountains, Highlands, Cashers, the Caribbean occasionally, and then they go to probably a lake house or a country place. And so we want to have resources, and the main focus is 30A.
Right.
But we also want to have resources in these other spots where most people who live in the Southeast vacation throughout the year.
It's a great idea. And I mean, it's a model that you already know works. And if you can replicate that in many places besides even the Southeast, that could be a whole different operation than you even have now.
Yeah, it's going great. It's got a lot of momentum, and we're having a lot of fun with
Well,
it.
that's so good. How many employees do you have?
20-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, it's a respectable amount, but then somewhat reasonable. But employing 20 people is a big deal.
Yeah, I try to actually keep it as small as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, because then the service, the quality assurance and the qualities of service usually can be better, smaller, except I know that for every business to grow, you have to have an economy of scale, which is like the most complicated juxtaposition in my head that I can't wrap my head around. Like, how do you do something creative and like really great with it? You know, like when you have so many people and it's not that personal touch anymore, and that's why people like concierge rather than like a conglomeration. So,
well, in 2023, the good news for us is it's never been easier with all the resources we have online and hiring freelancers, and I think it's never been. It's a lot easier than it was 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, technology changed
For sure.
that for sure, and then that will enable you to grow exponentially as well. I saw you pull up in your really nice truck with your Live Well brand on it. Do you ever? What do you think sometimes when you take a moment to look and say, "Wow, I'm really glad I did this," and look at my company and I'm driving around here, and like, do you ever, stop and smell the roses, which I think you probably do every day because that's how you're wired?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, this has all happened organically. What I love is seeing people wear our brand or reach out to us and tell us that the brand has in some way inspired them or it helps them to have a better day or put a smile on their face. That's the part that I love the most about it.
Yeah, I heard in one of your podcasts that I was listening to, you said, like one of the simplest things, and I'm paraphrasing you, is just make sure you show up with a smile, like the kind of like
Right.
that's very powerful.
Right.
And it is
Right.
pretty powerful and something that people like completely sort of miss the boat on it. And then you're also talking about character and just doing what you say
Yeah.
instead of not doing what you say.
And it's, the live well philosophy is you get these indicators in life that tell you, the reason made me think of, as you said, showing up with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
One of my indicators if I'm living well or not is, am I in a good mood?
Yeah.
I had a realization the
Yeah,
other
that's
day.
pretty good.
I wonder if you can relate to this. I encountered a grumpy person, which I can be grumpy, and we all can. But I encountered a grumpy person, and my takeaway was, this has nothing to do with me necessarily. This situation, this guy's just not living well today for whatever reason. Maybe he had a bad morning, or so. You talk about indicators.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my main indicators of, am I living well? Getting back to job number one is making sure I'm living well.
Right.
Am I happy and am I in a good mood?
Right. That's
And,
amazing.
Occasionally I'll catch myself getting angry about something, and I'll stop and I'll say, wait a second.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I own live well.
Life's,
Yeah.
life's too short. I got to get this thing back on track.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I like to do in a lot of the episodes is after we get into a good conversation is I ask people to give some tips and inspiration, which I know you like to do. But if you could, just give us some words of wisdom about how someone can maybe turn their life around, please do.
Well, I heard Jerry Seinfeld say the other day that meditation and weightlifting will fix just about anything. And I think
I think you're right.
that rings true with me. But I would add a couple more. I'm a big believer in meditation. I'm a big believer in, I'll just say, generally exercise. So if weightlifting is not for you, or you're not ready for that, I would just say exercise. 30. I don't care if it's a 30-minute walk. Getting 30 minutes of exercise a day is, I think, the most important piece of living well. It'll just get.
I agree.
It'll get things going in your brain and your body, and that will help get you on a better track. And I'm so glad you asked me this question, because when I look back at my 28-year-old self, and there are people in this position who are listening to this today, maybe even in this room with us, that are not living well, and it comes down to 6 or 10 decisions every day. And for me, it's mental health, it's physical health, it's so taking 30 minutes of exercise a day. That's one key decision I make every single day. I think waking up in a place you love is very important. So I think in order to live well, you have to enjoy where you live and where you wake up and where you spend your life. I think the people you surround yourself with, very important. I think the type of food you eat is very important. Sleep, meditation. I think being very cautious around alcohol and caffeine and the substances you put in your body. I'm certainly not a teetotaler, but I do believe in moderation and being. You don't want to get caught up in a cycle of going from alcohol to fast food to caffeine. So many people do this cycle every day or every weekend. So that kind of thing is very important to living well. I think those are probably my top takeaways.
I agree
my
with
top keys.
everyone. And it's funny, we were just talking about that here in the studio a couple of days ago about exercising and the power of it. And I was sharing with actually Tommy here, who's filming this, that I think it's great to exercise, to look good or be in good shape and be strong and everything. But a lot of times when I exercise, I think the mental health of it and the balance that I get from being happy, or the endorphins or the blood going, or just like I'm not looking at my phone for 1 hour, which is so small, like 1 hour in a day, but it's a big deal for me because I'm recalibrated and I feel like I'm like a lot better than if I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I can tell immediately. If I don't exercise, I can tell immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's more important than like a lot of people I think. I mean, 30 minutes. I don't even do it 30 minutes a day, but I definitely try to do 2 or 3 days a week,
Yeah.
like the best that I can do. But yeah, I totally agree with all of that.
So I just want to recap. The best advice I can give is start exercising. Live somewhere you want to live. And if you can't move to the beach today, and that's your ambition, I'm not saying that, but maybe make your apartment a little nicer than it is today. Make something about your environment better than it is today, and take one step towards that. I think meditation has been one of the biggest, most impactful things I've done in my life, is incorporating that into my life. The people you surround yourself with, make sure they're people that give you energy and make you happy, as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah.
And lastly, just being aware and conscious of what you're putting into your body and how that affects your mind and your body.
Very well said. You're definitely living your brand, right? You're not just making it up. You're definitely living and walking in that brand, which is great.
Well, I try every day. I don't get it right every single day, but
Yeah.
My outlook is, we're here. I feel very lucky to be here. I want to make the most of it.
Yeah, I do. I feel the same way. That's awesome. What other plans do you have down the road? Like, do you just do you see yourself continuing to like keep taking turns to strategically, grow this company? Like you were saying with the memberships, but like, is there anything else on the horizon? And the podcast, which congratulations in advance for your podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward to having you as a guest.
Great. Okay, I'd love to be on. We'll be practiced at that, right, together by then. Yeah, I think it'd be great. A fair amount of people who I do have on the show say, "What about, I want to do a podcast?" I'm like, "Go do it."
Right.
Like, you want to do it? Do it.
Right.
I think it's great because it's something that, can be done for somewhat of a nominal amount of money because of the technology and because of the medium, like you had said. Like, maybe the more like unsophisticated, the better, right? That's the genre of it that you like too. So, yeah, and if you have something to say, that's really, you have to have something to say that people want to listen to. And so you test it out to see, how it goes. But I think it's such a cool medium, like you do. We both agree with that too.
Well, I'm passionate about our message, and I said earlier, I think I'll do this for the rest of my life. This philosophy behind living well, and just what I've seen, the difference in kind of pre-28 and post-28, the difference in my level of happiness and what's available to me, and what we've been able to create that I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined would have been possible. And it all starts with living well.
Right.
And it's so repetitive, and my team hears it all the time, but every time we have a problem, I back up, or whether it's in my own personal life or with a group of people I'm with or my team. It's like, wait a second, are we living well? Or we got to start with the decisions we're making, and maybe that's impacting the way we're seeing the situation or whatever we're facing in a challenging moment. So that's what I am passionate about. And you talk about future plans with the brand. That's what I want to continue doing with this brand, is spreading our message and our philosophy to as many people as we can reach. That, hey, there is a better way to live this life that is superior. If you have this feeling inside that life should be better than this, I'm here to tell you, there's nothing extraordinary about me. There is something extraordinary about these practices that, as you incorporate them into your life, the changes you'll start to notice. And that's the message I want to spread for as long as I'm here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, great. That's really, really, really good advice. To some degree, simple, but also very rarely stated to the degree that you did. And it's definitely something that people need to hear. One thing before we go, because I just remembered when you were talking about that too, in some of your other interviews on podcasts, you did say, well, you've had challenges just like every entrepreneur would have. So one more tip, because I'm an entrepreneur too, and I've had many. So how do you keep staying the course when you have challenges, and how do you approach that? Like, how do you feel those curveballs that come your way? Because they will.
I was playing golf at Camp Creek one day, and a mentor of mine said, if you see failure as anything other than an opportunity to grow, you're reading too much into it. And so what keeps me going is just knowing that screw-ups are part of the game.
Right.
You know, failure is going to happen over and over and over every day, but successes are going to happen too. And so I just choose to focus on the wins, learn from the failures,
and the batting average, like you said earlier in this conversation, right? Like you just keep a good batting average with all that, right?
And have fun along the way. Yeah. But he could sense that I felt like I'd been walking through mud for 18 months, just with some things that were going on in my life and business. And he said, hey, man, don't read too much into that.
Right.
It's just, you've just had a bad couple rolls.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
It's great when you have people that can come in and keep prodding you along, I mean, everybody needs somebody at some point, in their life.
Who's been there.
Who's been there, yeah, it's so good.
And that shift, it can change everything.
Yeah, it can. Well, I'm sure a lot of your words are going to change some people's lives as well. So well spoken. Super nice to meet you in person.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
I hope that our relationship continues. All right. Thanks for being here. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Lots of words and pearls of wisdom. And how can I close it out without saying, live well? Have a good day. Bye.